We have breaking news tonight from Michigan, where there has been another development concerning the city of Flint. As difficult as it has been to talk about the long-term damage to Flint kids from the lead in the water in that city, the lifelong challenges, right, of everything from skin rashes to points shaved off their IQs to behavioral problems. The news tonight is not about that, because tonight, in addition to all that, Governor Snyder and state health officials have now had to report something new, a deadly spike in something called Legionnaires disease in Flint, which has also happened there since the city switched its water source. This Legionnaires outbreak has resulted in the deaths of 10 people. 10 people dead in 2 separate outbreaks of Legionnaires disease since the city started drinking from the Flint River. Now, we do get outbreaks sometime of Legionnaires disease in this country. Last year, for example, there were outbreaks in the state of Illinois and in the state of New York. Legionnaires disease happens. It's caused by a bacteria, basically gives you pneumonia which can kill you. The bacteria that causes it is commonly found in water. Health officials in Michigan tonight say they do not yet know whether this, again, fatal outbreak is directly related to the change in Flint's drinking water, but they are considering that possibility, and you can see why. Flint switched to drinking local river water in April 2014. It was 2 months later, in June, that the first outbreak began. All told, 87 people have gotten sick, and of the 87, 10 of them have died. Is this sudden rise in Legionnaires related to Flint's drinking water, to the same corrosion problem that lead poisoned the whole town? Or is this a whole other thing? We don't yet know. The renowned drinking water expert, though, from Virginia Tech, whose testing of Flint's water proved that it was high in lead, even when the state was maintaining otherwise. Professor Mark Edwards tonight says the same corrosion that chewed up the pipes and put all the lead in the water, yeah, theoretically, at least, that same corrosion could have also killed off the chlorine that was supposed to keep bacteria, like the bacteria that causes Legionnaires, at bay. And potentially, it could have given rise to this outbreak of Legionnaires disease. Potentially. Nobody knows yet for sure. Tonight, what they have in Flint is this new information from the governor about this fatal outbreak on top of the lead poisoning of that city. We've got news from the governor about this outbreak. We've got news that a new investigation is underway, and we've got questions. So many questions. God bless Flint, Michigan, and what the state did to their blessed water. Now this. After weeks of covering the astonishing lack of action to deal with the lead poisoning disaster in Flint, Michigan, now all of a sudden in the past week, a lot of things are happening, or at least a lot of things are being announced. Last week, Governor Rick Snyder finally declared a state of emergency for the city and county. On Saturday, he announced that fire stations in Flint would start handing out bottled water and water filters. On Sunday, he announced the state would start deploying teams of state troopers to distribute water and filters door to door. Then on Monday, the governor, miracle of all miracles, actually went personally to Flint and took questions from the press. Then yesterday, in the middle of the State of the Union address last night, Governor Snyder announced that he would call up the National Guard to help with the response in Flint. And then today, as we just reported today, there was this chilling, very worrying press conference suggesting that what we have in Flint may not just be a mass lead poisoning of an American city. Those same mistakes concerning Flint's water supply made by the state, those same mistakes may also have caused a fatal outbreak of Legionnaires disease that so far has killed 10 people. The pace of developments in Flint is just radically different from what it used to be. And some of that is satisfying to see, right? To feel that the response is at least cognizant of, if not exactly tracking, the scale of the problem. But even as things have picked up, there have also been these moments when it becomes very clear that something is still wrong with how this is being handled. For example, on Monday, just 2 days after Governor Snyder announced that 5 Flint firehouses would be water resource sites, a local NBC reporter found 3 of those 5 firehouses were already either low on or completely out of water and filters. After the governor's office announced that state personnel would be going door to door distributing water and filters, we learned that the entire effort for the whole city consisted of 20 people. 20 people going door to door in a city of 100,000 people and roughly 30,000 households. 20 people. And then there was Governor Snyder's big press conference in Flint to formally announce the state's new beefed-up response. Standing behind the governor, you see there on the left in this shot, was one of the true heroes of this disaster. The local pediatrician, who you may remember, she took it upon herself with no funding, but with nothing but resistance from the state, to start testing not the lead in the water, but the lead in Flint's kids because of the lead in the water. And her results, that doctor's results, were scary and stunning, and they basically blew this whole thing open. Turns out she found that the proportion of kids with elevated lead in their blood was nearly double what it had been before the town switched its water source, just in a matter of a few months. In some neighborhoods, the danger had tripled, not doubled. And at the time, the Snyder administration basically told people not to believe her. They said her results were spliced and diced. State officials basically continued to say that everything was fine, despite this alarming data that she had turned in. But the doctor, Dr. Mona Hanna-Attisha, known locally just as Dr. Mona, she really was right. And the state eventually had to admit it. And at his big Flint press conference this week announcing his emergency action plan for Flint, Rick Snyder and all of his senior administration officials, they had Dr. Mona standing right up there with them, like part of their team. And the governor talked about how excited he was to work with her specifically, how thankful he is for her work. He name-checked her several times. That said, Dr. Mona did not speak at that event. She just stood there. And there was this one intriguing moment when other people were talking, but she stood there shaking her head.
Our most recent data indicates that 43 of 2,182 adults and children tested had elevated blood lead levels since October 1st. This includes 23 children under the age of 6, 7 children aged 6 to 17, and 13 adults. As part of this, once a child had an elevated blood level result, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services is funded and is working with the Genesee County Health Department to provide follow-up case management.
So this is not subtle, right? This is not Sam Alito going, not true. This is the director of the Michigan Health Department talking about how many cases they found of elevated blood lead levels, and Dr. Mona is right there shaking her head, no, 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 no. And when we saw that, we wanted to know, what's the problem there? What is she reacting to so strongly on this day when supposedly everybody's at least supposed to look like they're on the same page? Joining us now is Dr. Mona Hanna-Attisha. She's a pediatrician with Hurley Children's Hospital in Flint. Dr. Hanna-Attisha, thank you again for being with us tonight. I hope I'm not getting you in trouble by asking you to explain this, but I couldn't help myself. I got to ask.
Thanks for having me, Rachel. Well, I've always had trouble keeping a poker face. And when we heard them mentioning that there was only 43 people with elevated lead levels, you know, I couldn't keep my expressions to myself, I guess. And really, this is a population-wide exposure. This entire population, every single child or adult who drank or cooked with this water from April 2014 until end date not set yet because the water is not safe, was exposed. So when we hear numbers like, oh, only 43 people with elevated levels since October, it minimizes the problem because really this is a population-wide problem, and it's not just that small amount of people.
If it is a population-wide problem, why are they talking about numbers that low? Why aren't more people who they're testing showing elevated blood lead levels?
Right, that's a great question. So lead lasts in your blood just a short period of time. So the half-life of lead is only about 20 to 30 days, and then it's gone. So a child could have had a peak lead level at 3 months or 4 months or 5 months, and we routinely were screening children at the ages of 1 and 2 as recommended. So we could have missed their peak, and when we screened them at 1 or 2, that level was no longer elevated. So all the testing that has happened really since the release of our press conference in late September only reflects a recent exposure, and by and large the majority of the people have been alerted to the water not being safe since late September. So what's the testing now is recent exposure. It does not mean doesn't tell you what your lead level was a year ago or 6 months ago when this was at its worst.
And am I right that there's no easy way to test about overall exposure? If you're showing a low elevated blood lead level, but you were exposed, your kids were exposed a long time ago, is there no easy way to test to show that long-term exposure?
Right, you could do a bone biopsy, but nobody's really signed up for that.
Right.
So no, there's not great ways to test that past exposure. So that is why we are under the assumption that the entire population was exposed, and thus the entire population needs to benefit from interventions to buffer, to mitigate that long-term exposure.
We also got news today about this Legionnaires disease outbreak. Do you have any information about whether or not that is related to this decision, or how serious that is for Flint?
Yeah, so I'm not really. Legionnaires is very much an adult condition, and I'm a kid's doctor. But according to Dr. Edwards and others, it does seem like this corrosive water could be implicated.
Dr. Mona Hanna-Attisha, pediatrician with Hurley Children's Hospital in Flint, Michigan. One of the things we're going to be talking about in upcoming days is this new initiative that you're part of, including part of it which is publicly funded. People asking for donations to support a fund and a task force for Flint kids in the long run. We're going to be talking about that in days ahead, Dr. Mona. Thanks for being with us tonight. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
Thank you.
True hero. We'll be right back.